I'm now going to introduce our first speaker. And as I say, I mean, I do feel a little bit, a little bit moist-eyed about introducing, I'm going to say, my friend, Professor Sir Steve Smith. He is Vice-Chancellor of the University of Exeter. He is past president of Universities UK. He has, until very recently, been the chair of UCAS and is still the chair of Universities UK's International Policy Network. Steve, over to you.
Thanks very much, Vivian. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us today. It's a strange way to do this, but something I guess we're going to get used to. These really are extraordinary times. Just a few weeks ago, even a few days ago, who could have imagined the scale and speed of the upheaval we're all living through? And to think just 6 weeks ago, we were all worrying about Brexit and its implications for higher education and for research. But now we're living in a time the like of which I've never seen in my career. We've had challenges, of course, in the past, but never have I faced such an extraordinary set of challenges as the ones we face now. Just a few weeks ago, coronavirus was predominantly viewed as an international issue, concerns centered on disruption to Chinese students planning to come to the UK. And maybe, in retrospect, we should congratulate the Chinese authorities on how they dealt with the spread of the virus, especially given our own recent experiences in Europe. Now, it's clear it will affect every aspect of our life and every aspect of university life. At Exeter, as at virtually all UK universities, we're preparing parts of our campuses to be used to support overflowing hospitals. Our labs are adapting to perform COVID-19 tests. All our teaching and learning is moving online. Many people in our teams are working with the local health services to provide equipment, facilities, and people. And we're working closely like never before with our local communities and services. As a sector, we are looking over the edge into a very significant financial abyss. With most institutions being able to cope with reduced finances, albeit at the cost of investment in major student and staff facilities. But most worryingly, to be honest, we're just uncertain, totally uncertain, where the bottom of this is going to be. Staff at all levels in my university are stepping up in extraordinarily and sometimes humbling ways to contribute to meeting this national emergency. And in that sense, the sector's reaction has been literally, to me, incredible to behold. But this crisis feels to me to be like no other. I honestly think it will change us and how we operate, teach, and research forever. Many of you, especially those who work in international teams, are at the sharp end of this. I know from the daily team meetings that I have been attending virtually for 8 days now, that universities up and down the country are struggling to repatriate their students, some of whom have been stranded by the closure of borders and suspension of international flights. Our staff are busy arranging travel and dealing with understandably very distressed students and families. You've been dealing with students who want to go home, some of whom are now stranded in the UK. You're taking calls from parents who are desperate to get their kids back home. You're working hard to make sure that those who are in university accommodation are safe, fed, and looked after. Yesterday at Exeter, most calls we had were about what we would do with students' belongings and whether they would have to pay their summer term accommodation fees. And you're doing a lot of this from home, sometimes with children who need attention or support with schoolwork, or of course, with relatives who are sick, giving a whole new meaning to work-life balance. And no doubt you're looking ahead to the next academic year and wondering what on earth it's going to bring. Reliable predictions of international recruitment for next year are impossible. But many of you will be thinking of creative solutions to try and mitigate the impact of delayed starts, including shifting start dates or moving to online provision for those students who can't get onto campus. So let me start really by saying a very, very big and sincere thank you. I know some of you will be having a really, really tough time. I see it in the teams I work with here. The physical and mental strain is enormous, but the work you're all doing really matters. It matters now in the teeth of the crisis, and it will matter for when we're through it. Given the circumstances, the theme of this year's International Higher Education Forum could not possibly be more appropriate. When it was chosen, UUKI was thinking about other risks and different drivers when it comes to innovation. However, these themes have an added significance now. The crisis is going to change us in ways we can only begin to imagine at this point. There'll be horrors to face. There will be institutional challenges on a scale we've never known, but there will also be innovations and new ideas which will bring positive benefits in the future. And however difficult it may be, the time will come when we need to start thinking about the recovery phase. Universities are also already thinking creatively about how to get through this year, but we will need a massive and coordinated effort to ensure that when normality returns, we can recover quickly. This will be important for universities, but not just for universities. To put it bluntly, our country needs you. You can be part of getting the UK back on its feet as part of an economically important sector and play a vital role in helping our towns and our cities recover, together with our outstanding research community, which is contributing so much to the fight against coronavirus, as well as to broader national prosperity. We can be proud to say that universities will have a key role in helping the UK bounce back. And through your many links and networks around the world, we may also have a significant contribution to make to the recovery of other countries. Transnational education is already a success story for the UK, and I predict it will become more important following this crisis, as universities think about diversifying the ways in which they reach international students. It could well be that the number of students able to travel to us to study is hit significantly by the financial hardships, which will inevitably follow the progress of this disease. Combined with other pressures, including those presented by climate change, we may well see reduced international tertiary mobility. At home, on the other side of this crisis, we're going to have to think about what we can do to help local, regional, and national economies recover. What more could we do together, for instance, to attract inward investment into our research system? How might we play a bigger role in bringing foreign investment to the UK and supporting the national infrastructure for export? We'll also have learned a lot. We'll have seen rapid innovation in online teaching, tools and methods. As professionals, we'll all be so used to working remotely and via online platforms that in some cases, we'll never go back to our old habits of gathering in stuffy rooms with bad coffee and biscuits we shouldn't be eating anyway. We'll get back time which we would have spent on trains and planes, and those carbon zero targets may not look quite so impossible, or so I hope. So the future won't quite be what we imagined it would be. But I think it's worth saying that the long-term goals we've set ourselves may remain largely unchanged. If this conference had been held 3 weeks ago, it's likely I would have spent my 20 minutes talking about the UK's international education strategy and the unparalleled opportunity we have to grow international collaboration as the UK moved rapidly towards doubling investment in research. I am sure, had Minister Donnellan been able to speak today, she would have spent some of her time reiterating these broad long-term goals. Had the world not been turned on its head, we would have shortly seen the publication of the government's refreshed strategy 1 year after the publication of the original. We'd have been celebrating the government's commitment to reintroduce post-study work visas for international graduates and the launch of the new global talent route for researchers. Perhaps we'd have been talking about where the government could go further, but we would also be celebrating the recovery of demand for study in the UK in India. And although the world has turned on its head, all of these factors remain in play. They will help us when the recovery phase begins. The strategy can be a framework for us to work together to double down on our strengths and our ambitions. I believe we're supported by a commitment right at the top of the government to helping our sector succeed internationally in both research and education. I want to take this opportunity to thank our new minister in her absence and her predecessors, particularly Chris Skidmore, Joe Johnson and Sam Gema, for their work to develop and deliver the international education strategy. I also want to thank DIT Minister Graham Stewart, who has been and remains a driving force behind the government's approach and a very positive force in enabling multiple government departments to work together. I see the strategy as a huge opportunity for us to put right what has been wrong in the UK's approach. The visa changes are particularly important. We've been fighting with one hand tied behind our backs in an increasingly competitive market for international students. Now we have a chance to compete on a level playing field. We'll need it more than ever when the crisis is over. We must also ensure when the crisis is over that we don't lose the ambition to double investment in research funding, although who knows what the economic and financial pressures resulting from this crisis will mean. However, I do believe that this government understands that investment in research is key to future prosperity. It's therefore possible that it may take longer to achieve the ambition of investing 2.4% of national GDP in research. After all, there will be such significant and public funding to support the very many people whose livelihoods will be destroyed by this crisis, but we must hold the government to that ambition in the longer term. I believe our sector has to step up to the challenge and contribute good ideas about how to use this investment in the national interest. We have an opportunity to contribute to ideas about how new funding can be used to support the highest impact and the most valuable international research collaborations. In conclusion, let me make 4 points. First, whatever we do, please let us not forget about Brexit and about our relationship with Europe. There's a danger that the immediate and urgent will crowd out the important, and our future relationship with our European partners will matter considerably for the future of UK higher education and research. UUK is still pushing for association with Horizon Europe and for some link with Erasmus+, not because we're in the habit of working within these structures, but because they bring such mutual benefits to all involved. One way or another, we will have to develop a relationship with the EU and its research and student mobility programs. But it is genuinely difficult to see how we will have the space to achieve that, given the government's understandable priorities for the coming months. Second, it's therefore crucially important that we work out a backup plan for international cooperation and collaboration. And this absolutely requires us to build on the excellent outline of possibilities set in the Adrian Smith and Graham Reed review published in the autumn of last year. One thing is absolutely certain in my view, and that is that this government has indicated in the clearest possible terms that it does not simply value research, but that it sees it and student staff mobility as central to the future health of the UK economy and society. As a sector, I think we're pushing at an open door when we call for a more international, knowledge-based economy and society. I note in particular the very speedy reversal of 9 years previous intransigence over post-study work visas. It took the new Prime Minister 6 weeks to reverse policy, and then the Conservative manifesto made very significant commitments to increasing the percentage of the economy spent on R&D, only for those promises to be massively further increased in the recent budget. I do not think that the COVID-19 crisis alters these fundamentals. So when the present crisis is over, and it will be over, these commitments will set the stage for future government policies and priorities. Thirdly, and then there is student recruitment. whether it is more TNE than direct recruitment, or whether international student recruitment reverts to its historical trend. Whatever, the UK has to move decisively towards increasing the percentage of international students studying at all levels in the UK educational system. There are many reasons for this, but for me, the absolutely key one is that education and research are becoming worldwide, more and more international every year. Of course, there's a big question about whether that international student education will be face-to-face, or whether one effect of this crisis will be to kickstart a new race to teach in a fundamentally different digital way. But the education and research systems that prosper in the world will be those that are international in focus, producing research that combines the talents and insights of leading researchers in more than one knowledge economy, and supporting and educating students in an increasingly, maybe totally digital way, in exactly the kinds of multicultural environments that resemble the world of work into which they want to move. But finally, I want to return to where I started. Universities and their staff and their students are doing extraordinary things in response to this crisis. If this crisis has shown one thing, it's that experts and expertise matter, and it's genuinely heartening to see the way in which the science has led so much, if not all, of our policy making. But equally importantly, universities are going to have a very important role to play in national recovery and rebuilding. I think the ways in which the sector has responded to this current crisis will further embed universities into their communities, showing that they are truly anchor institutions in their regions. And when the new normal emerges, I have absolutely no doubt that the UK higher education sector can and will be in the vanguard as we build our post-coronavirus society and economy. And given the UK higher education sector's strength, I feel enormously optimistic that we will be one of the leading sectors of our economy that helps drive the recovery. So, while there can be no doubt that these are dark days, unprecedented in my personal experience, I am honestly humbled by what we've shown we can contribute to our communities and society. Therefore, as we move towards the future, I think our universities and the outstanding staff we have in them will be set for a period of growth, of success, and of supporting the very best developments in international education and research. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all you're doing. Look after yourselves, and thank you for all you do to make this such an outstandingly strong higher education sector. Thank you, Vivian.
Great. Thank you so much indeed, Steve. I have honestly no idea whether you're back with me. There you go. I think you are back with me now. So apologies if you missed the first bit of that. Look, I think it's really important that we keep our eyes on the long term. And Steve, yesterday we had a conversation about what Exeter is doing. I think there will be so much to be proud of in the immediate short term too. I am very much enjoying the Twitter chat. I'm learning quite a lot about some of my colleagues. Miranda, you have a very messy desk. Eduardo, you have a very tidy desk. Please do keep those tweets coming in, and use the chat function in the next session to help Rachel Hall ask some really pithy questions on the subject of our next panel, which is risk and reputation.
Thanks for watching this video from the Education Studio. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.